What up, everybody? This is your cosmic homegirl, and I am doing another special video for my Patreon people, my cosmic homies. Thank you guys again for being on here. I appreciate you very, very much. And I have part two, is what I'm doing. Part two of sickness and health with astrology, or season of the sickness, as I named the first one. I told you guys I would do a follow-up video. In the first one, I showed you guys a couple of basics about how to tell the times when you are more susceptible to being sick or ill. All right. So I told you guys in the last video, to get to know your natal chart. And if you have your birth time and your ascendant, then you can know this more precisely of when it's the season of your 6th house and of your 12th house, and sometimes of your 1st house. Okay. In order to know like what planetary transits, like, excuse me, through the signs, you have to kind of up the immunity. You have to, step up the vitamins and the water and the exercise, and really, really watch your diet and stuff like that. So, as I mentioned before, I do plan, although plan is a funny word in my world these motherfucking days, all right? I do plan on eventually hopefully teaching like classes on astrology and health. So I'm not gonna get as in depth as I would really like to on this, but just to briefly show you guys a couple of things. All right, let me go ahead and show you a couple other ways of times where to know times where you have to kind of watch your health and stuff like that. So, the first thing I'm going to talk about is when you have transits of Neptune to your personal planets, which, Neptune is a very slow moving planet. So that happens, oh my gosh, once in a lifetime for most people, because Neptune stays in a sign for, I think, about 14 years or so. Yeah, like in around roughly 14-year increments. So it is really once in a lifetime that people will experience Neptune hitting like their sun or their Mercury or anything in their chart. But also if something is transiting over your Neptune. So what I would want you guys to know is what sign your Neptune is in. And that's basically, the basics. Know what sign your Neptune is in. So, for example, if you were born in, let's say, the 70s and 80s, like early 80s, your Neptune is likely to be in Sagittarius. So during Sagittarius season, you have to kind of watch your health a little more. If you're born in like the early to mid 80s, up until like the early 90s, you can look up the dates of Neptune's transits. Your Neptune is in Capricorn, so during Capricorn season, you got to watch your health. The late 90s until the early 2000s, your Neptune is in the sign of Aquarius. So that's, the same goes for you during Aquarius season. Any planet transiting the sign of Aquarius, okay? So if you have that once in a lifetime transit of Neptune going over any of your personal planets, you may have a little bit more delicate health during that period of time in your life. And you will have to kind of, watch for certain things. Like I told you guys in the last video, Neptune it dissolves things. It dissolves things. When it comes to your health, it can dissolve the barriers between you and like invasive organisms or creatures, like germs and bacteria. And you really need to, like I said before, boost your immunity, really take extra care of your health. So, for example, right now, as I'm recording this in 2021, Neptune is in the sign of Pisces. And Neptune has been in Pisces since the early 2010s. I think it's since like 2011, offhand, maybe 2012. So because of that, if you have any personal planets in the sign of Pisces, especially if it is your sun sign, okay, then yeah, you can maybe be more sensitive to things because Neptune causes sensitivity, like extra sensitivity, emotional sensitivity, but also physical. So you have to really watch what you put in and or on your body. And you probably have for the last like 10 years, started to develop noticing like, oh my gosh, I can't really eat the same, or I have to put extra this or that, or your skin may be more sensitive. Like it depends. There's a lot of other factors to show like what exactly you'll be sensitive towards, but just in general, your body and your health are a lot more sensitive. Okay, so Neptune transiting over your sun, your moon, your ascendant, and your the sign of your first house. Your rising sign. If you're a Pisces rising, listen, you guys are super like uber sensitive to everything. Okay, more than likely, depending upon the degree of your rising. If your later degree Pisces rising hasn't really hit you yet, but still, it being in your sign, yeah. Um, but yeah, planets transiting over your Neptune is something that happens every year, and it's more common and more frequent. So yes, during those periods of time, most def, honey, step it up with, keeping your health intact, and like watching what you eat, watching what you ingest. Step up the stuff like elderberry, vitamin C, and all of that, because you can probably more easily come down with like colds and congestion and fatigue, feeling tired and weak and stuff like that. So yeah. So for the majority of my audience, it's like you guys are usually Neptune and Scorpio on up to Neptune and Aquarius. So Scorpio, you know your Neptune. So yeah, any of those seasons for the majority of my audience, you gotta watch yourself, okay? Now, next we're gonna talk about Mars. When Mars transits your sign, meaning your rising. Sorry, y'all, I'm like kind of multitasking while I'm recording this. So when Mars transits your sign, like mostly it's like your sun or your rising sign are the most sensitive times, or maybe even your Mars return. And I think I mentioned in the last video, when Mars transits your first house, okay, so the sign of your rising, or even your sixth house of health and sickness. So whatever that sign is, whatever those signs are, when Mars transits them, which is usually once every 2.5 years, those times, oh my gosh, you could be more susceptible to things like inflammation, to fevers and rashes, like skin rashes that are irritating to you. Sorry, yeah, I'm trying to like get ready to go to work and record this. Your homegirl has like 50 jobs on. I don't know how many jobs I have anymore. So forgive the sprays and all this stuff I gotta put in my wig, all right? But anyway, so yeah, Mars transiting your sign. Fevers. I have known people to like be more susceptible to getting like the flu and stuff like that, because Mars rules violent attacks, right? So you can have bacteria and illnesses violently attack you, unfortunately, when you have Mars transiting your sign. Mostly it's, like I said, your rising sign, rising, ascendant, whatever. Or your sun sign. Also, you can be more subject to inflammation. If it's inflammation of like the skin, you could be your first house or your sun. If it's inflammation internally, It could be either the sign of your sun or your first house, or your sixth house, because the sixth house, it rules your intestines. Okay, so Mars in the sixth transits, yes, watch what you eat, because let me tell you, I have Mars natally in the sixth house, and during my Mars returns, I remember catching the stomach flu a lot during those transits. So yeah, like astrology, this shit is all the way real, man. Like it's no joke, okay? And also injuries. Injuries aren't necessarily like health and like in the terms of illness. But there's still like things that can, Lord have mercy on Mercury retrograde. I cannot. But there's still things that can happen to your body to kind of disrupt your health if you have an injury. Okay. So Mars transiting your first house or your ascendant, and also your sun sign, and also your natal Mars when it's your Mars return. When Mars comes back around to the same sign it was at when you were born, okay? It doesn't matter if it's at the same exact degree of your Mars, if you're a nerd enough to pay attention to degrees, or if it's just in that sign alone, you need to watch yourself, okay? All right. So next we're going to talk about Mercury, like innocent little Mercury, right? How can he cause sickness and illness and stuff? Well, Mercury rules the breathing, the lungs, okay? The functionality of your lungs and stuff. So Mercury transits can disrupt your respiratory system. It all depends. Like I said, there's deeper, more factors that once I teach a class, I'll get more into. But just know that, for example, when Mercury transits your rising sign or your ascendant, your first house, okay? Say like this chart is basic, if you're an Aries rising, Mercury's in Aries. You might find yourself sneezing more, having allergies, things just like bothering your breathing and stuff. Or if you already have like asthma or anything like that, that can be aggravated during the time that Mercury transits your first house. This is also true for if Mercury transits your sun, okay, your natal sun, and also your own Mercury. So when you have your Mercury return, say your natal Mercury is in Aries. When Mercury is in Aries, which is usually once a year, okay, then that during that time you might find yourself sneezing, itching, watery eyes, all the shit in that commercial, all those like allergy medication commercials. You might be checking off the list of symptoms like, yep, that's me. Mercury transiting your sixth house, that can also cause stuff like that. Aggravations to your breathing and your respiratory system, your sinuses, maybe even, okay? And then Mercury transiting your 12th house, yeah, you are more susceptible to colds and maybe even worse stuff depending upon other factors like pneumonias and stuff like that, other viruses that bother your respiratory system. Because like I mentioned before, the 12th house energy is very similar to Neptune. Neptune and Pisces, they both rule being congested, like liquids of the body filling up and bothering you. So Mercury is breathing, and then with Neptune and the 12th house being congestion, I mean, there you go. Like you're setting yourself up, for it's just that time, that season for you to be for you to easily have a cold, okay? So just be aware of that. Now let's talk about little innocent Miss Venus. But I thought that Venus is love and beauty and all the good things in life. Like, oh my gosh, how could she make you sick? So, I would say this, just to, try to keep it simple and stuff. The only, like, with Venus, transits to you, she doesn't usually cause illness, okay? Not usually, not normally. But when we have planets that transit, okay, if you are a woman, right? If you are a natural born female, okay, I have to specify these days. And yes, that does matter when it comes to astrology because you have woman parts, woman hormones naturally, you know. Um, eh, like when certain things transit over your Venus and also your moon and also your Lilith, if you are a woman, they can disrupt your feminine health, like your reproductive system, your hormones, the moon especially, with the hormones, Lilith with your lower region. Okay, let me tell you something. Oh my gosh, like me and my homegirl Apollonia, who's a fellow astrologer and one of my best friends in the whole wide world. If you watch my channel, you know. We are always constantly like reporting back and forth to each other, as women besties usually do when we have like feminine health issues and what planetary transits are going on. And when we have had harsh planets hitting our Lilith, yo, don't sleep on Lilith if you're a lady, okay? Look at what sign your Lilith is in. If you even have harsh planets squaring your Lilith, that can cause irritation and agitation to your feminine parts. I'm talking about like, the stuff that happens to us ladies, and even like cysts and stuff, like, major stuff like that. You need to pay attention to Lilith. um like she and I both have Lilith at the same degree, like in the middle degrees of fixed signs, but just different fixed signs from each other. And just like currently we have Saturn, squaring or opposing our Lilith. We have Uranus squaring or opposing our Lilith at the same time. And both of us are like, man, can we, can our little feminine tings just be left alone for a minute? You know what I mean? So there can be maybe some issues with your feminine health if your Lilith is being harshly aspected, meaning a square or an opposition or in a conjunction. My Lilith is in Scorpio, in the first house of the body. So you already know, y'all, like during Scorpio season, I need to watch it, okay? Because Scorpio itself, it rules your reproductive system and parts inside and out. But yeah, for women, Lilith, you need to watch transits to your Lilith, okay? Yeah, and transits to your moon, that are harsh. And by harsh, I mean like I said, those certain aspects, but also planets like Saturn and Mars. We'll just keep it simple and say Saturn and Mars hitting your shit. Okay? Your Venus, your moon, your Lilith. If you're a woman, they can aggravate issues with hormones or, internal or external irritations or something with your feminine health. Okay? And also your Venus or your moon being hit harshly, it doesn't matter if you are born a male or a female. They can kind of disrupt your diet, and you can be more susceptible to stuff like irritations to your digestive system, your stomach. You got to watch what you eat during those times. You could be more susceptible to maybe not food poisoning. Maybe if they transit, like if Venus transits your sixth house, maybe during the time that Venus transits your sixth, watch what you eat. But there it goes a little deeper than that. But yeah, Mars in the sixth, most def for food poisoning. But watch stuff hitting your Venus or your moon for like diet and your digestive system and stuff being disrupted. Okay. And lastly, let's talk about Chiron. Chiron, but he's the wounded healer. Yeah, but you know, he is also associated with physical illness too. Okay, so your Chiron in your chart, find out what sign it's in, and just keep it basic. You know, if you're a beginner with astrology, find out what sign he's in, and pay attention to when you hear about or read about any planets hitting your Chiron. That goes for any planet, actually. Any planet hitting your Chiron is massaging the wound, okay? And you can even look at a diagram, which I should have brought up. I mean, damn it, I thought I brought everything up. But you can Google like the diagram that tells you the parts of the body that each sign rules, and whatever sign that you have Chiron in, you may be a little more sensitive in that area of your body, like period point blank. I think most of my listeners have Chiron and starting in like Aries, probably Chiron in Aries, for like the 1960s, Taurus for the 1970s and 80s, you know, on up to let's see, probably Chiron in maybe Aquarius or Capricorn. Some of my younger viewers. So yeah, any Chiron in any of those signs, you find out which sign that it's in. Look up the parts of the body that sign rules, and that could be more sensitive for you. Okay, number one. Number two, yeah, when other planets are transiting over your Chiron, you can feel, and which may last, it depends on the planet, for maybe a few days to maybe a few years. Your health can be a little more sensitive at that time. Your health in general, but especially the part of the body that sign rules. Say, for example, you have Chiron in Virgo, which is like, I think early to mid 1990s, right? And Virgo rules health and sickness overall. So maybe just your health overall, but it also rules the intestines. So Chiron and Virgo people can have more issues there. And whenever it's Virgo season, meaning the sun is there, you know, Mercury, Venus, Mars, even hitting your Chiron, you need to take a little bit extra care of your health, especially your intestines. You see, excuse me, you see how astrology is like math. You just, you know, put the pieces together and add them up, all right, to see like what you need to do and what everything means. But also Chiron transiting over you. Now, Chiron stays in a sign for roughly about 7 years, I want to say, 7 to 8 years. So, if you have Chiron transiting your, stop it, your first house, so your rising, okay, your ascendant, your rising sign, like Aries risings right now have Chiron. As I'm recording this, Chiron is in Aries. So they have more sensitive health issues, okay? So yeah, if it's transiting your first house, your rising, health is a lot more sensitive. And if you have anything that comes up, do not ignore anything. Make sure you do go to the doctor, okay? If Chiron is transiting your sixth house of health and illness, you may make some changes. You may become more like the first and the sixth house when you have those transits, or even Chiron on your natal sun. Like right now, Aries suns, as I'm recording this, are going through that. You may just become, maybe you don't have a lot of issues per se, maybe like a little bit of issues, but you become more health conscious and aware during that time too, because Chiron is one ruler of health, so he makes you pay attention to your health more. And yeah, Chiron in the sixth, don't ignore problems. Go to the doctor, okay? Chiron on your natal sun, oof. Yeah, the sun is one ruler of your vitality, all right? So you can't ignore that transit either. And like I said, Chiron is usually like around like 7 or 8 years in a sign, but he comes back around like every 50 years or so. So people have their Chiron returns around their 50s. And that's when a lot of issues can come up too, you know. So yeah, that goes a little deeper, but just know it's every 50 years, the Chiron transit. And in your 50s, you know, you're already, shit is already starting to break down and not work like it used to. But it's your Chiron return. So, you know, most def take extra care of your health. Um, but yeah, Chiron transiting your like planets, your personal planets, your other ones like your moon. You may have issues with digestion and what you consume, and if you're a woman, maybe your hormones or your feminine health may be a little more sensitive during that time. If Chiron's transiting your Venus, if you're a woman, same thing. If Chiron transits your Mars and you're a man and you have male body parts, yes, sir, same thing. You need to pay attention. Mars and Chiron harsh aspects can mean your masculine health, your masculine body parts. You know, you need to, and maybe masculine hormones, your testosterone levels and stuff like that. You need to pay attention to that shit. All right. Chiron transiting your Mercury could be breathing problems. So, you know, you really need to stay on top of that, pay attention to that, and so on. Okay. So that's pretty much it, you guys, for part 2 of this series, you know, with just briefly touching on health and astrology, illness and astrology. You know, like I said before in the last video, these are the days and times of the Rona. Okay, so health is even extra important right now. And as I'm recording this, this is Virgo season. And Virgo is the sign that rules illnesses and health. So before it ends, I just thought I would finish this up. Oh, Lord have mercy. I can't. Sorry. Mercury is so motherfucking annoying. Like being in shadow period right now. Like I can't with him. But that wraps it up, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. You can leave comments below, questions or whatever. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you again for being here on my Patreon. If you're watching on Patreon, all right, peace out.